Sarah Miller couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about the house next door. For 3 weeks now, she had watched the strange blue lights that glowed from behind the curtains every night. The new neighbor never came out during the day, not even once. "There she goes again," Sarah whispered to herself, watching through her kitchen window as the tall, pale woman dragged another heavy black bag into her house at exactly 3 a.m. The woman moved like a dancer, too smooth and perfect in her steps. Her name was Luna, or at least that's what the mailbox said. Sarah had tried to be friendly. She had left welcome cookies on Luna's doorstep last week, but the plate remained untouched for 2 days. On the third morning, Sarah found the plate cleaned and polished so perfectly it looked brand new, with a note that simply read, "Thank you for the energy squares." Energy squares? Who calls cookies energy squares? But it was what happened next that really caught Sarah's attention. Every night after that, Luna would stand at her window for exactly 1 hour, staring at Sarah's house. Not moving, not blinking, just watching. The other neighbors started talking. Mrs. Johnson from across the street said Luna never had any grocery deliveries. Mr. Patterson swore he saw her garden glowing at midnight. And little Tommy from 2 houses down said he saw her eyes shine like blue flashlights when she checked her mail. Sarah tried to ignore the gossip. After all, she had been the weird neighbor once when she first moved in. But even she had to admit that Luna's behavior was strange. The woman wore the same white dress every day, never seemed to eat, and talked in a voice that sounded like it was coming through a computer. One chilly November morning, Sarah finally got her chance to meet Luna face to face. She was raking leaves in her front yard when she heard soft footsteps behind her. "Your yard maintenance ritual is most fascinating," Luna said. Sarah jumped, dropping her rake. Luna stood there, perfectly still, her long silver hair not moving even in the wind. Her skin was so pale it seemed to glow slightly, and her eyes, were they really slightly blue, or was it just the morning light? "Oh, you scared me," Sarah laughed nervously. "I'm Sarah. I left you those cookies a while back." Luna's head tilted at an odd angle. Yes, the energy squares. They contained an unusual power. I have never experienced such sensations before. Sarah blinked. What an odd way to say she liked the cookies. "Well, I'm glad you enjoyed them. I love baking, especially around the holidays. Actually, Thanksgiving is coming up next week." Luna's eyes widened slightly. Thanksgiving. I have read about this ritual. Humans gather to consume large quantities of food and express gratitude. Sarah couldn't help but smile at Luna's formal way of speaking. That's right. It's a time when friends and family come together to share a meal and be thankful for what they have. She hesitated for a moment, then added, "Would you like to join us? No one should be alone on Thanksgiving." Luna went completely still. For a moment, she didn't even seem to breathe. Then, slowly, her lips curved into what looked like a practiced smile. "You would share your gratitude ritual with me?" "Of course. Everyone's welcome at Thanksgiving," Sarah said warmly. "I accept this invitation," Luna replied. And just for a second, so quickly Sarah almost thought she imagined it, Luna's eyes flashed a brilliant blue. "I have been hoping to study human traditions more closely." "Study?" Sarah asked. "Experience," Luna corrected quickly. "I meant experience. English is not my first language." "Oh, where are you from?" Sarah asked curiously. Luna's face went blank for a moment. "Far away," she said finally. "Very far away. I must go now, but I will return for this Thanksgiving." As Luna walked away, moving with that strange, fluid grace, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that she had just invited something very different into her home. She watched as Luna entered her house, and for a moment, she swore she saw a flash of blue light under the door. Sarah picked up her rake, trying to push away her worries. After all, what was the worst that could happen at Thanksgiving dinner? Behind her, in Luna's house, blue lights began to pulse, and a soft humming filled the air. The week before Thanksgiving turned stranger by the day. Sarah couldn't stop thinking about Luna's odd behavior, especially after what happened with the turkey. It started when Sarah brought home her 20-pound turkey from the grocery store. Within minutes of putting it in her refrigerator, she heard a soft beeping sound coming from Luna's house. When she looked out her kitchen window, she saw Luna pressing what looked like a glowing blue crystal against her window, pointing it directly at Sarah's kitchen. Scanning complete, Sarah heard Luna's voice drift through the air, though her mouth wasn't moving. Earthbird contains sufficient emotional resonance capacity. Sarah quickly closed her curtains, her heart beating fast. But that was just the beginning. The next day, Sarah found strange symbols drawn in glowing blue chalk all around her house. They looked like circles within circles, with weird squiggly lines that seemed to move when she wasn't looking directly at them. When she asked Luna about them, her neighbor simply said, "Protection marks. Your dwelling will need them for the energy transfer." "The what?" Sarah had asked. "The feast," Luna corrected herself quickly. "I meant the feast." Things got even weirder when Luna started sending Sarah messages, not by phone or email, but by floating paper airplanes that flew through Sarah's open windows. Each note asked increasingly bizarre questions. What is the optimal temperature for human happiness during food consumption? Do emotions taste different when served with cranberry sauce? How many units of gratitude can one turkey absorb? Sarah tried to convince herself that Luna was just socially awkward and perhaps not familiar with American customs. But then came the incident with the neighbor's cat. Mrs. Johnson's cat went missing for 6 hours. When it came back, its fur was glowing slightly blue, and it kept walking in perfect circles while purring in a pitch that made all the glass in the house vibrate. Mrs. Johnson swore she saw it floating 2 inches off the ground, but no one believed her. The day before Thanksgiving, Luna knocked on Sarah's door. She stood there in her usual white dress, but now it seemed to shimmer with tiny points of light, like stars in a galaxy. "I have prepared my contribution to the ritual," Luna announced, holding up a covered dish that hummed softly and leaked wisps of blue vapor. "It is a traditional recipe from my homeland." "Oh, that's nice," Sarah managed to say. "What exactly is it?" Luna's eyes glowed brighter than ever. "It is called essence of pure joy in your language, or perhaps distilled memories of laughter. The translation is difficult. It feeds on. It goes well with turkey." The dish in Luna's hands made a sound that Sarah could have sworn was a giggle. "I must warn you," Luna continued, her voice becoming eerily serious. "Once my dish is served, your guests may experience temporary side effects, such as floating, spontaneous bursts of uncontrollable happiness and the ability to taste colors. But I assure you, it is all part of the traditional experience." Sarah wanted to refuse the dish, to call off the whole dinner, to run away screaming. But when she looked into Luna's glowing eyes, she saw something that made her pause: loneliness. Behind all the strangeness and mystery, Luna looked like someone who just wanted to belong somewhere. "I'll put it in the fridge," Sarah heard herself say. Luna's smile lit up the room. Literally. The ceiling lights flickered, and for a moment, everything in Sarah's house floated 2 inches off the ground. "Excellent," Luna said, handing over the humming dish. "Tomorrow will be a Thanksgiving your species will never forget." As Luna turned to leave, Sarah noticed something that made her blood run cold. Luna's shadow wasn't moving with her, it was moving in the opposite direction. Inside the covered dish, something was definitely giggling now, and it sounded hungry. Sarah looked at her phone, wondering if she should call her guests and cancel. But what would she tell them? That she suspected her neighbor was an alien who wanted to harvest their emotions through a mysteriously glowing Thanksgiving dinner. In Luna's house, the blue lights were pulsing faster now, and if Sarah listened carefully, she could hear what sounded like a choir of voices singing in a language that made her teeth vibrate. Tomorrow was going to be interesting, to say the least. Thanksgiving Day arrived with an unusual blue sunrise. Sarah's guests started showing up at 4 p.m. Her best friend Mike, elderly Mrs. Johnson, the Patterson family with their teenage kids, and young Tommy with his parents. Everyone was chatting happily until Luna arrived. She floated. No, Sarah told herself. Walked through the front door wearing what looked like her usual white dress. But today, it rippled like water and occasionally showed glimpses of what appeared to be moving stars beneath the fabric. Her silver hair moved by itself, even though there was no wind inside the house. "I have brought the string bean casserole as requested," Luna announced, holding up a normal-looking dish in one hand and her mysterious glowing blue dish in the other. "I watched 17 YouTube tutorials to ensure accuracy in this Earth recipe." The string bean casserole looked perfectly normal, except that the beans were arranged in what appeared to be complex mathematical equations. Thanks, Luna," Sarah said, taking both dishes. The normal-looking casserole was ice-cold, while the glowing blue dish was humming a tune that sounded suspiciously like "Happy Birthday." "That's an interesting dress," Mrs. Johnson commented, squinting at Luna. "Yes," Luna replied, staring without blinking. "It is made from the collected light of dying stars and the dreams of sleeping butterflies. I mean, it is from Target." The Patterson teenagers started recording everything on their phones, but every video came out showing Luna surrounded by floating musical notes and tiny dancing lights. Things got stranger when they sat down to eat. Luna kept trying to calibrate her chair height by floating several inches above it. When Sarah asked her to stop, she apologized and sat normally, but her feet never quite touched the ground. "So, Luna, what do you do for work?" Mike asked, trying to make conversation. "I am a collector of human emoji. I am a data analyst," Luna corrected herself quickly. "I study patterns of human behavior happiness." "Yes, data analyst. Very normal Earth job." As Sarah started carving the turkey, several odd things happened at once. The knife began to hum in harmony with Luna's glowing dish. The turkey briefly opened its eyes. Sarah was sure it had eyes for a second. All the cranberry sauce arranged itself into perfect fractals. The mashed potatoes started spelling out messages in an alien language before Sarah quickly stirred them. "Before we eat," Luna announced suddenly, standing up, definitely floating an inch above the floor now, "I must initiate the traditional gratitude collection ceremony." She pulled out what looked like a crystal ball filled with swirling blue energy. "Please, everyone focus your happiness into this emotion capture sphere. This lovely holiday decoration." The sphere started spinning, emitting a soft blue light that made everyone feel unusually happy and lightheaded. Mrs. Johnson's dentures started glowing, and young Tommy swore he could suddenly understand what the houseplants were thinking. "Luna," Sarah whispered urgently, "what exactly are you?" But she was interrupted by Luna's mysterious dish, which chose that moment to start singing an operatic version of "We Are the Champions" while changing colors. "Do not be alarmed," Luna said calmly as her eyes grew increasingly bright. "This is all part of the traditional Earth celebration, yes. The consumption of bird flesh, the gathering of family units, the harvesting of pure emotional energy through quantum resonance fields. I have studied your customs thoroughly." The Pattersons' teenage daughter raised her hand. That last part isn't." "More turkey?" Sarah interrupted quickly, trying to maintain some normalcy even as the gravy boat started floating and doing backflips. Luna beamed, literally sending small sparks of light across the table. "Yes, the Earth bird's capacity for emotional energy storage is remarkable. Almost as remarkable as how none of you have noticed that we've been eating upside down for the past 3 minutes." Everyone looked down, or rather, up, and realized they were indeed sitting on the ceiling. "Oops," Luna said, waving her hand. Everyone gently floated back to their proper chairs. A slight calibration error. "Now, who would like to try my special dish? I promise it will only make you temporarily omniscient." As Sarah watched her Thanksgiving dinner descend into beautiful chaos, she realized 2 things. 1. She had definitely invited an alien to dinner, and 2. This was shaping up to be the most interesting Thanksgiving of her life. In the corner, the turkey winked at her. She winked back. The moment Luna's mysterious dish was opened, reality itself seemed to hiccup. A sweet-smelling mist in every color of the rainbow, plus 3 colors no one had ever seen before, floated out and formed tiny dancing galaxies above the dining table. "Behold," Luna announced proudly, "my grandmother's recipe for quantum joy pudding, with a side of crystallized laughter." The dish looked like a swirling nebula in a bowl, complete with tiny shooting stars. Mrs. Johnson poked it with her spoon. The pudding poked back. Is that safe to eat?" Mike asked, watching his portion arrange itself into a perfect DNA helix. "Oh yes," Luna assured them, her eyes now glowing like blue headlights. "It only causes temporary enlightenment, brief bouts of time travel, and the ability to speak to houseplants. The ability to taste memories is completely optional." Before anyone could object, the pudding started serving itself, doing elaborate acrobatic flips onto everyone's plates, while humming the theme from Star Wars. The effects were immediate and extraordinary. Tommy started floating and giggling uncontrollably while speaking perfect Latin. Mrs. Johnson's gray hair turned rainbow-colored and started playing classical music. The Patterson teenagers began seeing each other's thoughts in comic book format floating above their heads. Mike discovered he could suddenly understand quantum physics and was solving complex equations with his mashed potatoes. Sarah watched in amazement as her guests' emotions became visible, literally visible, floating above their heads in swirling clouds of colored light. Luna was collecting these emotion clouds in her crystal sphere, which was now the size of a beach ball and pulsing with energy. "Fascinating," Luna muttered, taking notes on what appeared to be a clipboard made of solidified moonlight. "Human happiness levels are exceeding expected parameters. The emotional harvest will be. The dinner is going wonderfully." That's when things got really weird. The turkey, which had been quietly observing everything, suddenly stood up on its drumsticks and began conducting an orchestra of floating utensils in a performance of Beethoven's Fifth Symphony. The cranberry sauce formed itself into tiny dancers and began performing the Nutcracker. "Luna," Sarah said firmly, even as she watched her gravy boat do backflips through time and space, "I think it's time you told us what's really going on." Luna looked around at the chaos. Mrs. Johnson was now speaking telepathically with her cat, who had shown up wearing a tiny spacesuit. The Patterson kids were playing interdimensional tag, and Mike was explaining string theory to a very interested houseplant. "Well," Luna began, as her human disguise flickered slightly, revealing glimpses of what looked like constellation patterns under her skin, "I suppose there's no point in maintaining the charade. You see, I come from a world where emotions are extinct." She waved her hand, and suddenly everyone could see through the walls of the house into what looked like infinite space. "My people lost the ability to feel eons ago," Luna continued, her voice echoing strangely. "We became beings of pure logic and reason. But then we discovered Earth, and your incredible capacity for emotion, especially during this ritual you call Thanksgiving." The crystal sphere pulsed brighter, now showing tiny scenes of memories and feelings swirling inside it like a kaleidoscope. "We're not here to harm anyone," Luna assured them as she absent-mindedly turned gravity sideways. "We just want to study your emotions, learn from them, maybe even learn how to feel again." Everyone sat, or floated, in stunned silence, trying to process this revelation while simultaneously experiencing all of human history through the taste of mashed potatoes. Finally, Yum Tommy, still floating near the ceiling, raised his hand. "Does this mean we're having alien pudding for dessert too?" Luna's smile lit up the room. Literally, all the light bulbs turned into tiny suns. "Oh, the dessert," she said with a gleam in her now galaxy-filled eyes, "is even more interesting." Above the table, the turkey continued conducting its utensil orchestra, which had moved on to a jazz fusion version of Take Me to Your Leader. Time was doing strange things in Sarah's house. While they had only an hour until Luna's entire species arrived, Luna managed to stretch that hour into what felt like a comfortable afternoon using some basic quantum manipulation. The Turkey Orchestra had now recruited the refrigerator as a backup singer. First things first, Luna announced, her cosmic form rippling with nervous starlight. We need to prepare for 10,000 guests who have never experienced emotions before. She waved her hand, and Sarah's kitchen expanded into an impossible space, with counters stretching into what looked like infinity. The Patterson teenagers were live-streaming everything, though their phones were now broadcasting to several alternate dimensions. Comments were coming in from beings made of pure mathematics. "I have an idea," Mrs. Johnson said, her rainbow hair now braiding itself automatically. "If emotions are what they want, why don't we show them our memories of past Thanksgivings?" Luna's galaxy eyes brightened. "Yes, we can convert emotional memories into energy they can absorb." She pulled out what looked like a cross between a camera and a soap bubble maker. "Everyone think of your happiest Thanksgiving memories." As they concentrated, golden threads of memory began flowing from everyone's minds. Sarah's first Thanksgiving cooking for her family. The Patterson kids having food fights as toddlers. Mrs. Johnson's 50 years of holiday gatherings. Mike's memories of his grandmother's secret recipes. Tommy remembering the year he discovered he could fit a whole roll in his mouth. Luna captured these memory threads in her device, which started humming the emotional equivalent of a symphony. Even the turkey contributed a memory of its time as a living bird, though everyone tactfully ignored that one. Suddenly, the walls of the house became transparent again, showing the approaching alien fleet. Thousands of crystalline ships, each shaped like geometric snowflakes, were entering Earth's atmosphere. "Don't panic," Luna said, as several plates started panicking anyway and hiding under the tablecloth. "But we may need to expand our dinner plan slightly." That's when something amazing happened. Neighbors started showing up at Sarah's door, each drawn by the strange lights and the sound of orchestral turkey music. They all brought dishes. Mr. Garcia brought his famous enchiladas, which were now telling jokes in Spanish. The Zhang family arrived with dumplings that taught everyone Mandarin while being eaten. Old Mr. Peterson came with his secret recipe pie, which showed you glimpses of your future when you took a bite. As more people arrived, Luna's emotion-capturing sphere grew larger, filled with a rainbow of human feelings. The turkey conducted its now massive orchestra, including 3 refrigerators, a dishwasher jazz quartet, and a choir of singing vegetables, in a moving performance of What a Wonderful World. "This is extraordinary," Luna whispered, her cosmic form glowing brighter. "The humans aren't afraid. They're excited." Indeed, the whole neighborhood had turned Sarah's expanded house into an impromptu potluck celebration. Kids were floating near the ceiling, playing with streams of stardust. Adults were sharing recipes with quantum modifications. Teenagers were teaching alien mathematical beings how to take selfies. The Pattersons' daughter even figured out how to convert Luna's emotion capture device into an interdimensional social media platform. #Alien Thanksgiving was trending across 7 dimensions. Mrs. Johnson's rainbow-colored cat had started a support group for other neighborhood pets dealing with sudden cosmic awareness. They were having deep philosophical discussions about the nature of reality and the best brands of cat food. Just as the first alien ships were landing, transforming Sarah's front yard into a geometric garden of crystalline structures, Mike made an announcement. "Hey, Luna, I think your quantum joy pudding is reproducing." Everyone turned to look at the original dish, which had indeed spawned hundreds of tiny pudding offspring, each one emitting its own unique emotional frequency. "Perfect timing," Luna said, her galaxy eyes twinkling. "But we may need to explain to my species that not all Earth food creates spontaneous consciousness." In the kitchen, the turkey adjusted its conductor's body and prepared for its biggest performance yet. After all, It's not every day you get to conduct an orchestra for an audience from across the cosmos. Outside, the geometric ships were landing in perfect fractals, and Sarah could hear the confused but excited murmurs of thousands of cosmic beings experiencing their first emotions: wonder, curiosity, and most importantly, the warm feeling of being welcomed to a Thanksgiving dinner that was about to become truly universal. The scene in Sarah's infinitely expanded house defied every known law of physics, which was probably why the laws of physics had taken the night off and were currently enjoying some quantum joy pudding in the corner. 10,000 crystalline aliens had arrived, each transforming from geometric shapes into stunning cosmic forms, similar to Luna's, as they experienced their first emotions. The results were spectacular. One group tasted apple pie and immediately invented a new color. Several began crying stars of joy, creating a miniature galaxy in Sarah's living room. A particularly moved alien accidentally turned all the neighborhood cars into friendly quantum vehicles that told dad jokes. The oldest alien sage experienced his first laugh and created a constellation shaped like a turkey. The turkey itself was now conducting the most extraordinary orchestra in Earth's history. The refrigerator chorus had expanded to include appliances from across the neighborhood. Dancing silverware performed aerial ballets. Mrs. Johnson's rainbow cat played a jazz saxophone. The quantum pudding offspring provided backup vocals in 13 dimensions simultaneously. Even the alien ships joined in, humming crystalline harmonies from above. Luna stood in the center of it all, her cosmic form radiant with joy. "My people," she announced, her voice echoing across dimensions, "welcome to your first emotional experience. Thanksgiving." The response was overwhelming. 10,000 beings of pure energy, experiencing feelings for the first time, created a light show that would be visible from space for years to come. NASA would later classify it as the Aurora Thanksgiving Gillis. But the real magic happened during the meal. Sarah had worried about feeding so many guests, but it turned out cosmic beings had their own way of sharing food. Each bite of turkey was experienced simultaneously by all. The mashed potatoes revealed the mysteries of the universe, though everyone forgot them after dinner, except for Tommy, who occasionally mutters quantum equations in his sleep. The cranberry sauce taught everyone telepathy for exactly 7.3 minutes. Mrs. Johnson's green bean casserole somehow tasted like childhood memories from 5 different planets. The Patterson teenagers' interdimensional livestream had gone viral across the cosmos. #EarthGiving Day was trending in galaxies humans hadn't even discovered yet. Their phones were receiving likes from beings made of dark matter. As dinner reached its peak, something unprecedented happened. Luna's people, overwhelmed by their first experience of emotions, began to transform. Their crystalline forms softened, colors swirled within them, and they started to develop their own unique emotional signatures. "We remember," one ancient alien whispered, glowing with joy. "We remember how to feel." The celebration that followed transcended human understanding. Time danced in circles. Love became visible as rainbow auroras. Every joke ever told merged into one perfect moment of laughter. The turkey conducted a piece of music that explained the meaning of life. As the evening wound down, across several dimensions simultaneously, Luna made an announcement that rippled across space-time. "My people, we came here seeking to study emotions. Instead, we found something greater. We found family. From this day forward, Earth will be our emotional home. Every Thanksgiving, we shall return, not as observers, but as participants in this magnificent celebration of feelings." Sarah looked around at her impossible gathering. Humans and aliens sharing stories. The turkey taking a well-deserved bow. Mrs. Johnson teaching quantum beings how to knit with starlight. Children playing interdimensional hide-and-seek. The pudding offspring starting a cosmic food blog. "Luna," Sarah said, hugging her alien friend, and briefly experiencing all of space-time. "You're welcome here anytime." Luna's galaxy eyes sparkled. "On my world, we had knowledge of everything in the universe," she said. "But on Earth, I found something better. I found what it means to be alive. As the cosmic beings prepared to depart, they left gifts. The ability for all humans present to see emotional auras, a quantum cookbook that adapted recipes to any species, a promise to return next year with cosmic dishes of their own. And most importantly, the turkey was granted eternal life and a permanent position as Earth's first interstellar orchestra conductor. The last ship departed just as dawn broke, leaving behind a neighborhood forever changed. The laws of physics reluctantly went back to work, though they were noticeably more flexible around Sarah's house from that day forward. And if you visit that neighborhood today, you might notice some odd things. Gardens that grow emotions alongside flowers, cars that hum happiness as they drive, a turkey conducting the sunset, and every Thanksgiving, the sky fills with geometric ships as the universe's most unusual family reunion begins again. After all, as Luna would say, emotions are the spice of the cosmos, but family is the main course.